Okay, in section 2, we're going to talk about organization again, not at the individual level, but at the ecological level, that is, populations and communities. Now remember that one of the characteristics of living things is that they are constantly interacting with their surroundings. They are taking in materials and energy and getting rid of materials and energy. Living things are not these inert masses. They're constantly interacting with their surroundings. And so we'll see that in these ecological communities and ecosystems that these materials, matter, particular elements, particular compounds, are constantly being reused, recycled. That is, some organism dies and decomposers consume the biomass of that dead organism and get that material back into the system. You know, the leaves that fall in the fall don't just pile up year after year on the forest floor. It would be a problem if they did, but they are constantly being recycled by bacteria and earthworms and certain types of protista in the soil that decompose them. All right, so the matter is constantly being recycled. Now, what about the energy? For most systems at the Earth's surface, the only exceptions might be some of these deep sea vents, but for most ecological systems, the source of energy is the sun, of course, and the sun is driving the photosynthetic process, where, as we'll see in a later chapter, the plants are able to convert carbon dioxide and water using that sunlight energy into sugars, taking those simple molecules and making them more complex ones. And so the plants use that food for themselves, but then of course animals also come along and eat the plant to get some of that food and the energy in that food. Now, energy is not recycled, though. That's sort of a law of nature, you might say. It comes in as sunlight, it's converted into chemical energy through photosynthesis. It's made use of by plants and animals and other types of organisms, and it's ultimately lost or given off as heat. And heat cannot be converted back into sunlight. That's an impossibility. So energy has a one-way trip through these systems. The matter is constantly being recycled. Okay. There's a little discussion in the chapter about people and how people impact these systems. We won't dwell on that too much. That is something that I dwell on a lot in my senior elective in environmental issues. You're welcome to take that someday, and I encourage you to. But let's look at biodiversity. Now, these systems have diversity. You can't really have an ecological system with only one type of organism. That wouldn't work. It would not be very stable. So they have multiple species of various types. Of course, the things that are photosynthesizing and converting sunlight energy into food, and then all the animals that eat those plants and algae and other photosynthesizers, and then animals that eat the other animals, carnivores and such. And so this can lead to a fair amount of diversity depending on where that system is. They talk a bit about coral reefs and tropical rainforests in the book and how diverse they are. They are indeed the most diverse systems on the planet as far as we know, compared to, say, where we are here in Tennessee, or if you go up into Canada. So as you read this stuff and think about it, I want you to think about why that is, why we see in general greater diversity in tropical areas, that is, areas around the equator, these tropical forests, coral reefs, than when you go further away from the equator. We'll talk about that in class and some of the hypotheses as to why that is. Okay, hope you all have a good weekend, and see you next class.